A woman named Hulda arrives at her old workplace in a wheelchair. Hulda used to be a teacher at a popular school built by a magician named Otto, but after she tried to get rid of him and use his powers for evil, she was transferred to another school in a local area. As Hulda moves around the school, the students stare at her, but she just ignores them and heads inside. After a while, she goes to see the principal, Dr. Schmidt, who looks shocked to see her. As the principal asks what she's doing at the school, Hulda says she's back because she needs something. She adds that even though Schmidt sent her away to another school, she still found a way to deal with difficult students over there. Just then, the school's housemaster, Michalski, runs into the office to send Hulda away, but Schmidt tells him to hold on so they can hear what she wants. Following this, Hulda says that her body's condition is worsening and that she's hoping that Schmidt will grant her access to use Otto's spell book to heal herself. Schmidt says she won't let that happen because she still remembers when Hulda tried to use his powers for evil. She adds that Otto's powers are only useful for protecting his works and his students. Hulda still tries to convince Schmidt to help her because her health is deteriorating, but the principal says it's normal because she's very old. Hulda eventually begs Schmidt to help her, but she says there's nothing she can do. Hulda looks really pissed to hear this, and as she insults Schmidt, Michalski finally wheels her out of the office. He then drops her just by the stairs, and as Hulda wonders how she'll get down, he leaves her there almost immediately. Hulda moves her wheelchair, and she falls badly down the stairs and even twists her neck, but she fixes it while a student watches her. Elsewhere, a girl named Ella arrives at her friend's house to meet him so they can head to school together. As she knocks on the door, her friend, Felix, appears to have just woken up, and he quickly starts wearing his clothes. His dad, Peter, also gets woken up by the knock on the door, and he goes to check who it is. As Ella sees him, she notices that he just woke up, and she asks if his wife is on a business trip. Peter asks how she knows, and Ella says it's just her intuition. Following this, Peter lets Ella into the house, and she goes straight to meet Felix while he's getting dressed. Felix says he's sorry for waking up late, but Ella says she'll wait for him. As she then admires him, Ella asks if he has ever thought of both of them being in a relationship. Felix says he has never thought of it because she's his friend, and Ella looks disappointed. She also leaves his room, and as he comes out of the bathroom, he looks surprised to see that she's no longer there. Shortly after, Felix leaves for school, and as he enters the hallway, he bumps into a new girl named Melanie. Felix immediately apologizes for this, but Melanie says it's nothing. She then tells him the class she's headed to, and he says it's also his class. Felix then tells her to come with him if she wants, and she thanks him for helping her. She also calls him Felix, and as he wonders how she knew his name, she says that his name is on his bag. Shortly after, they both enter the class, and Felix apologizes to Schmidt for coming late. After he heads to his seat, Schmidt welcomes Melanie to the class and says she has been expecting her. Melanie says it was Felix who helped her locate the class, and Schmidt tells her to find somewhere to sit. Schmidt then tells the other students that Melanie is a new student who recently moved to their town. Suddenly, Melanie places her book between Ella and Felix. Ella is surprised by this, and as Melanie also sits in between her and Felix, she wonders why the new girl wants to be too close to her friend. Shortly after, the school bell rings, and Schmidt tells the students to turn in their assignments later. She also tells Melanie that if she needs anything, she can always speak to Felix because he's one of the best students in the class. Felix says she can surely ask him for whatever she needs, and Melanie says she will. As she's about to leave the class, a boy named Mario tries to flirt with Melanie, but she insults him and walks away. Mario and Felix's two other friends then joke about how Melanie seems to like Felix. Ella also says it's true, but Felix mentions that he doesn't see what they're talking about. After a while, another teacher named Lara comes to the class and tells the students that their planned excursion has been cancelled because of accommodation problem. My dear friends, it's here for your brooms. As he tells the students to suggest other places they can go, some of them give give funny options, but Melanie says they can go to her hometown and visit her old school. She says it's in a place called Miracle Street, and it's also where Otto came from. One of the students doesn't seem sure about this, but Melanie says that her hometown has a lot of fun places and that her school has a hostel that is supervised by her former teacher. Lara says he'll work on getting the approval for the place, and he eventually leaves the class. Melanie then asks Felix if he would like to hang out with her after school. Even though Felix is about to accept her offer, Ella says they have a meeting with their other friends. Melanie doesn't look happy about this, and as she angrily leaves the class, she steals one of Felix's pens. When Felix packs his bag, he notices that one of his pens is missing, and he asks if Ella has seen it. Hast du meinen Füller gesehen? Yeah. Ella says she hasn't seen it, and Felix just forgets about it. As he heads out of the class, he hears someone calling his name in the hallway. Felix is shocked by this, but it turns out to be Otto, whose spirit has been haunting the school building since he died. Suddenly, a door opens in front of Felix, and Otto tells him to come inside because he needs his help with something. As Felix goes in, he looks shocked to see a head statue of Otto talking to him. Otto asks if Felix knows he's over 140 years old, but he says he doesn't. Otto then mentions that on the anniversary of his birth, an exhibition is always held in his name, and some important artifacts belonging to him are displayed for people to see.
Das heißt, ich muss mir vorstellen, wie etwas geschrumpft aussieht?
Otto adds that he wants Felix to protect the collection and ensure that no one steals it. He says he'll teach Felix how to shrink the thieves, and he looks really excited. As Felix asks what he needs to do, Otto tells him that he can shrink people or things with his imagination. He also mentions that Felix can stare at what he wants to shrink while using his imagination to move a magical marble inside a bowl. Felix immediately selects an object to shrink, but as the magical marble starts moving in the bowl, it eventually gets displaced and hits several things in the room. Felix finds this funny and tells Otto that he doesn't think he can do it. Otto still encourages him to try it again, but he still fails to get it right. Otto then tells him that he'll need to keep trying until he gets it. When Felix arrives home, he looks at himself in the mirror and wonders if his body parts are of the same size. As Peter enters the bathroom, Felix asks if he looks good or if his body is deformed. Peter says he's perfect, but he also mentions that he knows his son is asking about his body traits because he's trying to impress a girl. Felix denies this and heads to his room to continue practicing how to shrink things. After a while, he shrinks one of his dad's slippers, but as he tries to reverse the process, he fails to transform it back to its original size. The next morning, while his dad is preparing to take him to school so he can join his classmates for the excursion, Peter jokes with Felix and mentions that he met Felix's mom on a school trip. Felix doesn't get why his dad is telling him this, and he just ignores him. After they get to the school, Peter greets Schmidt and Lara, and he also offers to help with carrying some of Otto's artifacts onto the school bus. As Felix drops his bag, he sees Melanie standing near the bus and waves at her. He then goes to meet Ella and his friends to ask if they've already packed enough snacks and refreshments for the excursion. Shortly after, the students start helping with carrying the artifacts onto the bus. As Mario drops his jacket to carry a box, he sees Melanie sitting alone and asks if she won't join them. Melanie tells him to leave her alone, and even though Mario doesn't understand what he did wrong, he just walks away. While he's then arranging the artifacts onto the bus, he and the others complain that not everyone is helping. Mario says that Melanie is just sitting inside the room and doing nothing, but Schmidt thinks there might be a reason for it. Since Felix has been quite nice to the new girl, Schmidt tells him to check up on Melanie. Just then, Felix walks into the building and sees Peter carrying a big statue with Lara. Unfortunately, the statue eventually falls on Lara and he gets badly injured, so an ambulance is called to the school. Meanwhile, Felix goes to meet Melanie to ask why she didn't want Mario to talk to her. Melanie looks sad and says that no one likes her at the school. Felix says he's sorry if she feels that way, but that he can cheer her up by shrinking a magical necklace and turning it into a bracelet. As Melanie tells him to prove that he can do it, Felix covers the necklace and drops the magical marble into a bowl. He then secretly begs Otto to help him shrink the necklace. After his trick works, Melanie looks shocked, and as As she admires the necklace, she asks Felix if she can take it and use it as a bracelet. Even though he's not sure if she can take it, Felix says it's fine, and Melanie wears it. After she then leaves the room, Otto closes the door and stops Felix from leaving. He then scolds Felix for showing off his powers to Melanie. Felix says he only wanted to cheer her up, but Otto tells him to focus on the things that matter. Felix says he won't take his eyes off the collection, and Otto also tells him to ensure the necklace is returned because it will eventually be useful for him. Meanwhile, Lara is too weak to go on the excursion, so Schmidt asks Peter and Michalski if one of them would like to replace him. Even though Schmidt wants Michalski to come with her because she's attracted to him, Peter volunteers to replace Lara, but he says he'll have to get some of his things at home first. As he drives home, he nearly hits another car, but he doesn't seem to care. It then turns out that the occupants of the other car are Hulda and two of her students, Michi and Lucas. Hulda scolds Lucas for driving recklessly and also insults Michi when she jokes about how they're skipping school to help their new teacher. Hulda then asks if they still know what they're going to do, and Michi says they're heading to Miracle Street to set a trap for Schmidt and her students before they arrive. As Hulda tells Lucas to get the car moving, he says it has stopped working, and this gets her pissed. Elsewhere, Peter returns to the school and enters the school bus. Felix looks shocked to see his dad on the bus. Peter explains that he's replacing Lara. Suddenly, Mario notices that his phone is missing, and as Ella says they never had thieves in their class, they suspect that Melanie has something to do with it. Mario then accuses Melanie of stealing his phone, but she denies it, and Felix also tells him not to call her a thief. Mario still thinks Melanie stole his phone, but he returns to his seat. Melanie thanks Felix for standing up for her, but he says it's nothing. As the magical bracelet on her hand starts glowing, Felix tells her that she'll still have to return it because it's part of Otto's collection. Melanie feels sad to hear this, but she asks if she can at least wear it throughout their trip. Felix says she can, and Melanie thanks him for this. However, Ella stares at them strangely and looks jealous that Melanie is getting closer to Felix. Shortly after, the bus arrives at the hostel the students will be staying in. As they all get down, they see that the place is locked, and they tell Melanie to call her former teacher. Melanie says that her teacher doesn't have a phone, and everyone starts thinking it was a bad idea to visit the town for their excursion. Luckily, Felix finds the caretaker's phone number on the door and calls her. After a while, she shows up and opens the door for the students to come in. However, they find out that the place needs some cleaning because it has been a long time since anyone stayed there. Schmidt and Peter then tell the students to clean their rooms, and they do just this. Elsewhere, Hulda forces an innocent man to drive her and her students to Miracle Street so they can start working on their plan. Hulda doesn't look happy because they're already late, but she says they can still get things done. Later that night, Melanie steals a spell book from Otto's things and hides it in her room. When all the students then sit together to talk about the town, Melanie offers to tell them a story about a lady named Marta who married a rich man. Unfortunately, their relationship didn't end well, and the man killed her. As Melanie continues telling the story of how Marta's ghost has been haunting the town, Felix sees two shadows walking into the hostel. This surprises him, so he leaves the room and checks around to see if he'll find anyone. As he gets to the storeroom for Otto's collection, he sees two strange people checking one of the boxes. Before he sees who they are, the magical marble falls from his hand, and this spooks the thieves, who turn out to be Michi and Lucas. As Felix picks up the marble, they escape through the window, but he doesn't see who they are. That's not. Suddenly, Schmidt and Peter enter the room to ask what Felix is doing in the room. He then mentions that he thought he saw someone inside the room, but it might have just been a ghost. Later that night, Melanie sneaks out of the hostel and goes to meet Hulda. It turns out that she's one of Hulda's students at her new school, and she was told to infiltrate Otto's school and steal the spell book. After Hulda asks if she has it, Melanie gives it to her, and this makes her extremely happy. Melanie then says she's no longer interested in working for Hulda, but the teacher blackmails her and says she'll expose her for stealing the book and some other things in the past. She says that Felix still needs to be monitored and that Melanie has to continue getting close to him. Melanie is left with no choice but to accept Hulda's request, and she returns to the hostel. The next morning, Schmidt takes the students to the house where Otto was born. As they get there, they start taking his collection to one of the rooms inside there. While the others are working, Felix gets a text from Melanie saying they need to talk. Shortly after, Michi and Lucas show up at the front door with some food and drinks. When Schmidt and Peter meet them at the door, they mention that they were sent by Melanie's teacher to bring the items as a way to apologize for not being at the hostel to welcome them. Michi and Lucas say a lot of weird things, but Schmidt and Peter still accept the gift and say that they're looking forward to seeing Melanie's teacher. Meanwhile, as Felix waits for Melanie to show up, his friends approach him to warn him about the new girl. They also express their concerns about how he has gotten close to the new girl, even though there's something off about her. As Felix defends her, Mario shows him the pen that Melanie stole from him. Felix can't believe they went through her things, and he says that Melanie likely just has the same pen. He also tells them to leave because he's waiting for Melanie, but they refuse to go out. Following this, he secretly puts the marble inside a bowl and shrinks them. His friends are shocked by this, and as they wonder what he has done to them, Melanie walks in. His miniature friends immediately run to hide so that she won't see them, as she then tells Felix that there's something they need to talk about. His friends keep distracting him and telling him to send her away. Felix doesn't want to do this, but since he doesn't want her to see them, he tells her that his friends don't like her and she needs to leave before they show up. Melanie doesn't get this, but as she angrily leaves, she steals the marble inside the bowl. Ella and the others then ask Felix what he'll do to them, and he says he'll have to beg Otto to change them back because he's not sure he can do it. His friends can't believe this, and as they complain, Felix notices that the marble is gone. His friends immediately label Melanie as the thief who stole it, and Felix also believes she's responsible for taking the marble because no one else could have stolen it. Felix then tells his friends to enter a box so he can take them to find Melanie and get the marble back. They initially hesitate because the box won't be comfortable for them. But Felix convinces them to come with him. Following this, Felix takes the box to the caretaker's shop to ask if she has seen Melanie. Nishi and Lucas are inside there, and they look surprised to see Felix asking about Melanie. As they ask what he wants, Felix says he just wants to ask her for something, but Nishi and Lucas start trying to bully him. Lucas eventually snatches the box from his hand, but when he checks inside, Felix's friends remain still, and he thinks they're just dolls. As he jokes about this, he returns the box to Felix, and he leaves. When they return to the hostel, they see everyone sleeping and realize that someone must have drugged their food and drinks. Felix's friends believe Melanie has a hand in it, and as Felix sees Schmidt and Peter looking sleepy, he asks what happened, but they say they don't know. He then asks if anything is missing, and Schmidt mentions that only the spell book hasn't been found. After he tells them to go to bed, Felix starts thinking of what to do next. Meanwhile, Hulda sounds pissed when she learns that Felix didn't eat the food she sent to the hostel. She then gives Melanie a bottle of juice and tells her to make sure Felix drinks it and falls asleep like the others. Later that night, Melanie texts Felix to meet her at her house, and he leaves his friends back at the hostel while they're sleeping. Shortly after, he gets to Melanie's house, and she welcomes him inside. As he asks if her parents are around, she doesn't answer him, but she says there's something she needs to tell him. She then gives him the marble and says sorry for taking it. Felix asks why she stole it, and she says she can't help it because she's a kleptomaniac. Felix then asks if she also took the spell book, but she says it's not with her. Before he asks any questions, she gives him Mario's phone, and he says he appreciates the fact that she's being honest with him. Just then, he picks up the drink from the table, and just as he takes a sip, Melanie stops him. He's shocked by this, but as he asks if there's anything inside, Melanie takes a sip to show him that it's harmless. However, a few minutes later, both of them fall asleep. In the morning, they both wake up and hear Hulda's voice downstairs. Melanie tells Felix that he needs to leave because her mom is around, but as he's about to head out, he looks outside the window and sees Hulda, who he happens to know as an evil person. He then asks if she's Melanie's mom, but she says she isn't. She adds that Hulda is blackmailing her, and it's why she has been helping her. Felix looks pissed to hear this, and he says he can't believe he didn't listen to his friends when they warned him about her. Melanie tries to apologize, but he doesn't listen to her. After he returns to the hostel, he realizes that his friends are missing, so he quickly goes to alert Schmidt and Peter that Hulda is planning an attack on the school. Since someone has to be at the school with Michalski, Schmidt says she'll go there and wait for Hulda to show up. Elsewhere, Lucas and Michi show Melanie a box containing Felix's friends. She pretends not to like them, but as Nishi and Lucas walk away, she takes a picture of Felix's friends and sends it to him. She then calls him to report what's happening, but he refuses to answer his phone. He eventually sees the picture she sent and immediately returns to her house to save his friends. As he's about to enter, he notices the doors are locked, but since there's a very small opening at the bottom, he shrinks himself and goes inside. After sneaking around and finding his friends, he escapes with them, and Lucas looks shocked when he doesn't see the kidnapped kids. Since Hulda will be angry at him, he suggests putting some objects into a box and pretending that it's the kids. Michi likes this idea, and they leave together to meet her. Meanwhile, Felix's friends tell him to transform them back to normal, but he says he doesn't think he can do it with his current size. His friends can't believe this, but he apologizes to them for not heeding their warning about Melanie earlier. As he then sees Hulda about to leave for the school, he and his friends climb on a skateboard to follow her truck. After a while, they eventually land on the truck, but Hulda and her students don't know about this. When Hulda gets to the school, Schmidt and Michalski are already waiting for her and her students. As they refuse to let her in, she mentions that she has kidnapped Felix's friends as hostages, and she'll kill them if she's not allowed to go inside. Schmidt and Michalski are shocked to hear this, and as they contemplate what to do, Hulda appears behind them and knocks them out. She then enters the school building and tells her students to bring everything needed to perform the ritual to summon Otto's spirit. Meanwhile, Felix and his friends leave the truck, but as they think of how to get inside, Ella suggests calling Melanie for help. Felix doesn't like this idea because she once lied to them, but Ella says that Melanie is the only one who can take them inside. Following this, Felix texts Melanie, and she secretly meets him and his friends outside. She then says sorry for lying about who she is, and Felix says they can start all over. Just then, she carries them inside and takes them to Otto's exhibition room. Melanie also puts the marvel into a bowl, and Felix calls on Otto to help turn him and his friends back to normal. Otto doesn't respond, and it turns out that Hulda has already completed the ritual to summon him. As he appears, Hulda says she wants to drain his power so she can use it to regain her full strength. She also says there's no one left to help him because all his loyalists have been dealt with. Otto says she's just wasting her time because he won't let her drain his power, but Hulda eventually succeeds in rendering his spirit powerless. Following this, she stands up from her wheelchair to show that she's now feeling better. Elsewhere, Otto's statue still doesn't answer Felix, so Ella tells him to do it by himself. Even though he's initially not sure he can do it, Felix eventually changes himself and his friends back to normal. As he hears Hulda coming in, he then tells them to hide. Almost immediately, Hulda enters the exhibition room and sees Felix. She looks surprised to see him, but she says he can't do anything to her because she has his friends inside the box with Lucas. Felix laughs at her and tells his friends to come out of hiding, and this shocks Hulda, especially because Melanie is now one of them. However, Hulda says she's not scared of them because she now has all of Otto's powers inside her. As she then tries to block them to a corner of the room, Felix stands up to her and says she doesn't have all Otto's powers. She doesn't understand this, but Felix says he'll show her what he means. Just then, he shrinks her to be very small, and as she complains about this, he continues making her small until she disappears. Lucas and Nishi are shocked by this, but Felix's friends are happy with what he has done. Almost immediately, Peter arrives at the school with all the students, and Schmidt and Michalski also wake up.
Give me wood?
Meanwhile, Otto shows up to Felix and tells him that he'll now be in charge of protecting his collection. He adds that it's time for him to retire, but Felix begs him not to leave because he's not ready for such a huge responsibility. Otto then tells him to rely on the necklace for help because it will be useful for him. Before Felix can say anything else, Otto disappears. Peter and the others enter the school and ask if there's a problem, but Felix assures them that everything is fine. The next day, Melanie returns the bracelet to Felix, and he thanks her for helping him defeat Hulda. He also says they can continue to be friends, and Melanie is happy about this. Later that day, Ella visits Felix and asks how he's doing. He says he's fine, but that he can't stop thinking of how the bracelet will help him. Suddenly, the bracelet starts glowing.